There was a terrific and really well-reported article in Time magazine about the environmental damage, all the kinds of costs that will be associated with the dam incident, the Kakhovka Dam that was damaged recently and leading to widespread flooding. However, the article itself, which again is really good, was undermined by whoever attached this headline to it: how Ukraine's dam collapse could become the country's Chernobyl. As many people pointed out, including the Daily Wire, Ukraine already had a Chernobyl. It's Chernobyl, which took place in Soviet-occupied Ukraine. So this is a great example of the headline writer, I assume, was different from the author. Because if you read the article, the author, again, mentions Chernobyl, is well aware of the fact that Chernobyl took place in Ukraine. The headline writer just put that thing on there, leading to such widespread mockery on social media that it's kind of fair. It's kind of funny. Totally fair for the headline, not really fair for the article. If you read it, again, the person knows.
Right. Well, look.
That's the precaution you have to take.
And substantively, it is an interesting comparison. I know that when I came to the story at first, it wasn't clear to me what level of destruction, how cataclysmic something like a dam
sounds really bad.
Malfunction or exploding, or there's still a lot of fingers being pointed. The allegation, of course, just to recap a little bit, is that because Russia has been in control of the dam for some period of time, that they had the means and opportunity to do so. However, the motive, again, is really unclear, given that it caused widespread destruction that isn't tactically advantageous and meaningfully to one side or the other. It would be a war crime if it was purposeful, which is why I think there's a lot of deflection as to who did it. And it could be the case that this is damage that just occurred in the course of war. The consequences are disastrous across the board. The disaster negatively affects the drinking water supply in Crimea, which would militate against it being something that Russia didn't want to do, since they have been in control of Crimea, obviously, since 2014, et cetera.
Right. We did an interview with Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis on the show last Thursday. I encourage everyone to check that out. And he was kind of summarizing the available reporting as the damage to the dam was not intentional. It was based on military action Ukraine took, but was not meaning to compromise the dam, which is going to have profound, massively negative consequences for Russia, but also substantially for Ukraine. Yeah. So it's an accident. Of course, it's something that happened. It's like a fog of war kind of thing, but that is that's the danger that comes from having prolonged military involvement and escalations. One of the reasons we have cautioned against greater U.S. involvement and said that, just unlimited weapons forever is actually dangerous for the U.S., for everyone, because it heightens the risk of eventual nuclear warfare because of an accident, because things go wrong. The wrong person gets hit. The wrong plane or missile crashes in the wrong place, and then you're in a hot war. And the longer there is confrontation, the longer there's the opportunity for something, not because anyone willfully says, now it's time for nuclear confrontation, but because things go wrong, as we're seeing. This is a disaster that could be as bad, they're saying, as Chernobyl, a horrific, terrifying. I don't know if you watched that documentary on HBO. It was pretty good from a
the documentary or the show?
Well, I watched the show. I get it.
Yeah, I was a little distracted by the British accents, I gotta say. I couldn't get past it.
Fair enough. But that guy is such a good actor and everything.
Everyone foreign in an American show is British, and I cannot get past it.
All right, fair enough. But again, no one intentionally did anything wrong. It wasn't sabotage. They didn't mean to have this horrific nuclear incident that resulted in widespread cancers for people dying immediately in the area, and then this was a fallout being felt miles and miles and miles by other countries in Eastern Europe. Just horrible. So to repeat that on not because of nuclear damage, but because of flooding and famine and other environmental harms is really, really scary to contemplate.
Absolutely.
Wanted to also mention just another Ukraine story. I thought this was very indicative of a kind of Russian phobia about Russia, that the kind of freedom fries, Russia are the bad guys. The Eat, Pray, Love author, Elizabeth Gilbert, this is according to LitHub, she has self-canceled her next book, which was going to be called The Snow Forest, that was just set in Russia, in Siberia. And she put out a statement saying that she'd heard from so many people who say now is just not the right time to release a book that takes place in Russia. I hear you, people who want Ukraine not attacked, so I'm just going to hold off on this.
It's
crazy.
Wild. What's so bizarre about this is that we were just there. We were just there with the Freedom Prize, and it was the liberals who were pointing out how absurd that kind of blaming an entire country, stigmatizing an entire people over the political actions of its leadership is a bizarre thing to do. It's a kind of jingoistic, superficial reading of global politics, and only the dumbest people in the world back then, folks at the dumb bushes, would ever engage in that kind of politics. And now here we are. It sounds from the story like Gilbert, frankly, knows better, but just doesn't want to put up with the hassle and the fight of it all. And maybe she's right, ultimately. We're seeing now that in the Tara Reid story that we covered last week, her choice to go to Russia to promote her book, leading her to being in Russia when she became afraid of traveling without being arrested and being on an Interpol list, led her to seek asylum in Russia. The fact that it is Russia has led to a number of accusations about her allegiances and wanting to defect and all of these kinds of things because of what the political nature is of Russia in the public eye. So maybe it is legitimate for Gilbert to just not want to catch that smoke and to want to avoid any kind of negative implications. But it is a sorry state of affairs that people have to change the setting of a book. Is it even a fictional book?
No, it's a fiction book.
Fictional book. I mean, they were trying to cancel Tchaikovsky when this first started. This is getting absurd.
It's so crazy. It's not an endorsement of the Russian government. It's not an endorsement of Vladimir Putin to set a novel, a fictional novel in Russia. I mean, this is getting so crazy.
Did you skip the Nutcracker last Christmas?
Exactly. Liberals, I thought liberals knew better, but they are just as liable to succumb to a kind of patriotic this is a patriotism on behalf of another country, which has become part of their identity. The Ukraine flags.
Yeah, I was in New York over the weekend, and I was walking by a very popular East Village restaurant called Veselka, which now has Ukrainian flags all over. It's a Ukrainian restaurant, but has a large portrait of Zelensky in the middle of the restaurant, and it is an interesting thing to see liberals. I mean, it's a restaurant frequented by the NYU crowd. I mean, it's the Lower East Side, and it has been popular and good. The pierogies are great. It's been a beloved New York institution for many, many years. But it is fascinating to see not just support Ukraine, but this kind of very over the top, almost branding that feels. Right. Maybe virtue signaling, maybe that's a little an unkind way to put it. But it is a very fascinating flip-flop of a change of events.
I put this kind of thing, look, it's voluntary, nobody forced her, but I put this in the cancel culture category.
Well, she's self-canceled.
Right, it's self-inflicted.
Which I don't know that counts.
I think it counts. I think it counts.
All right, we'll have more Rising for you right after this.